Okay, alrighty. Welcome to this little breakdown video, or better, the sixth attempt of making it, because I had several crashes with my software, with my recording software. And yeah, sometimes I was also finished with the recording, just to find out later on that I've got some pretty weird stuff going on, like the second time I tried to record everything in one part, where at the beginning everything was going fine. You can see, just explaining some stuff in the viewport, going around. And then around 8 minutes I've got this, which is pretty interesting. And by the way, if you want to recreate that, you have to go to, in After Effects, you have to go to Distort, Effects, Distort, and then Offset, and then you have to keyframe the X value. And I've also got some interesting hue stuff going on. So if you want to have that, you have to take the hue effects under Color and After Effects. But it even got more funky later on, as you can see here. For instance, with all this blinking and these weird artifacts here at the bottom. And yeah, it looks quite interesting, but of course it is not quite what I wanted. And yeah, you can imagine that it is quite frustrating when you've been recording for about 34-45 minutes and explaining stuff, and you just want to edit the video that you've just created. It's quite frustrating to then find out that you cannot use anything of it because your software has messed it all up. There are artifacts in it, and it's all going, really strange. So that is problematic. And let me also show the last one to you. It's also quite interesting because I decided to split the Blender part and the After Effects part into two. So that the recording doesn't get too long, because I've noticed that at a certain time frame, videos almost always fail. So if I'm recording longer than 30 minutes, it's almost sure that the software will mess it up. But it also already happens very often at about 15 minutes. And yeah, this is the last video that I recorded. So this is me in Blender trying to explain stuff. And yeah, at around 50 minutes, the screen just went black, and yeah, you could still hear my voice on the recording because I've been recording with an external microphone, so you can still hear me, which is great, but you don't see anything except for a black screen, which takes away all the purpose of the video, because how shall I explain something graphic to you when you can't see anything? And yeah, so this is the whole part where I did the camera animation, and you cannot see that. And yeah, as you can see, I cannot use anything of that. So I guess I will have to bite the bullet and do another one, a sixth attempt, which I'm just doing right now. And yeah, this time I will even cut it in 3 parts. So I'll just show this to you at first and show you the Blender scene, and then make 2 separate ones where I'm showing you what I did inside of Blender, and then what I did inside of After Effects. But I will upload it as 2 separate videos. Let me just look. 3 minutes, okay, all fine. And yeah, I will upload the After Effects part as one video and the Blender part as one video, because I also thought that some people might just be interested in the After Effects part, and some people might just be interested in the Blender part. And why should I bore one or the other with things they are not interested in? So yeah, I will keep it in 2 videos, but that much about it. That's just sharing my frustration with you and how much time I've already put into this without getting anything from it. So let's open the scene. So this is the scene basically, and I can also show you the video. The video that I created, if you haven't seen it already on YouTube, is this one. Oops, it doesn't play. Now it does. Yeah, and as you can see, it's pretty simple actually, but basically me trying to recreate a camera effect, like it was filmed with the camera. Basically with these artifacts, it's looking like it's some kind of VHS recording, which is rarely used nowadays because most people have gone digital. But yeah, that's about it. Now let's go to the Blender scene and see what I've done here. So first of all, you can see this particle system, but let me just turn that on, turn that off. It's Staub. It's the German word for dust. Let me just turn that one off and turn the emitter of the Staub auf. So, now you can see that it's moving much better, much faster. The thing behind this is that I've been using a lot of denoising in this scene. And the problem with the denoising was that it simply didn't make sense to put in any dust, because the denoising decided to almost put all of the dust out of it. So it was just additional render time, and the image didn't change at all, or at least almost almost not at all. And so it was pretty senseless to have that one in. But I didn't work with denoising before, so I didn't know that. And I guess, there's always a first time, and we're all on a learning journey. So I'm learning new stuff too all the time, and I think Blender's complex enough that you don't have to be ashamed not to know everything inside the program. And there's a lot of trial and error, and you have to find out things for yourself. But that said, let's get into it. As you can see, this scene is very simple. The guitars are all low poly. The modeling is also not that fancy, as you can see. Okay, here's some more detail at the top of it. But it's really just some simple geometry. And I don't think I have to make a tutorial about that. And the environment is even more easy. It's just some planes that I've extruded, and I've used an array modifier. This one's just a simple block with some beveled edges. So I don't think there's much to be explained about that so far. And as you can see, I've been using some empties here. Some people have been wondering maybe what these ones are for. And the background of that is pretty easy actually. I've created a collection for every guitar, or I've created two basically, because this one is the silver version, and then there's one with golden humbuckers. So that's why I've created two for each one. I wasn't sure which one would look better in the end, so I decided to keep both in. And with this empty, it's basically like that. I've linked everything to the empty, and I've still got separate objects. So theoretically, if I wanted to, I could still go in and say, okay, I want to work on these ones, on these buttons, for instance, and just work on them and not the rest of the thing. And so I could keep it as separate objects if I wanted to change one thing later on, but still I can animate it as one with the empty. So that's basically the background with that. And so that much about the scene. And if you wonder about the lighting is basically also very easy. I had a sun lamp in the scene, but the most of illumination is coming from these mesh lights. And they're pretty easy. If I just separate that, you can see it's some very easy metal material that I applied to it. So that's the metal for the lamp. And some very easy low poly cables. I think every one of you can do that. And then I've got this mesh here, and I've used some emission on that, so that I've got a mesh light. And that's basically pretty much about that. So you can see the scene is really, really simple, and didn't do that much, just used some denoising, and good. And what's also funny, if you have a closer look in the video later on, because of the denoising, also the strings of the guitar got removed in some of the images, which is of course not what I intended, but then again the denoising saved me so much render time, but I thought it was okay, and in the end I also added so much compositing to the whole thing, that I don't think that you notice that anyway so much, because the compositing becomes much more prominent. But I think the time is already going on. We're about 10 minutes, and as I told you, I don't want to record longer than 15 minutes anymore, best not even go over 12 minutes, because when the recording might mess up. So let me just make a quick cut here, and in the second part I will show you what I've done in Blender, and then I will do a separate video, as I already said, with everything that I did in After Effects. But let's take a cut here and do a separate recording for that. Yeah, okay, alrighty, and welcome back to our breakdown video of the last video that I created. And when I was rendering out the last video that I recorded, I had two things going on my mind. And the first thing is, it's both concerning the recording software, Camtasia Studio. The first thing is that I've been recording in CamRec, and I don't think that this is a good format, because I could also record in AV or AVI. And as I do all of the video editing outside of Camtasia, that might be more sensible, because yesterday I had one video that I've been recording that has been about 20 minutes, and it has been around 100 gigabytes. So yeah, that's kind of crazy, because CamRec seems to be some kind of RAW format. And 100 gigabytes for 20 minutes of video, that's yeah, quite a lot. It's like recording raw video in 4K or whatever. And yeah, I was wondering whether this CamRec format is the right format for me to use. Maybe someone of you knows a little bit more about that. If not, I can Google it for myself, but maybe someone knows about it. And the second one is, the software is also pretty old. I use a version of the software that is like 10 or 12 years old, something like that. And yeah, I was wondering whether you could maybe suggest me another software. Yeah, because I don't know much about screen recording software. I'm using it, but I haven't informed myself for the last years, simply because I had my software. I'm not happy with it, but I have some software that I've been using. And maybe someone can recommend me a software that is better for me and more stable and doesn't create some artifacts or something like that, as you've seen in the last video. Yeah, I know of some people who use Fraps, but they seem to be using it only for games. And I also know of people using Open Broadcaster or Open Recorder, something like that. But they also said that they had problems with that. And yeah, maybe you are using a software that is better, and it would be quite nice if you know one, if you can suggest me that in the comments. Because as I've said, I've been recording the same video 6 times, and yeah, it's kind of annoying to work with the software, but good. That much about it. And let's go back to the breakdown video. And the next thing I wanted to show you is the compositing that I did, which is fairly simple. And then I want to show you how I created this interesting camera movement, so that the video looked like, yeah, it was taken by hand, some Steadicam footage or something like that. But let's go to the compositing, and in order to see something, you have to render out an image, which I already did, because I thought I can spare you that time. And yeah, as I said, it's quite basic actually. So here's our render layer. I even haven't separated it into separate render layers or into separate collections as they are now used. And yeah, as you can see, the last one is the lens distortion. This is basically there so that the lines are not all straight but are bended, which is an effect that occurs with every lens that you're using. And that is most prominent if you're using fisheye lenses, for instance. And yeah, normally you probably would use it more subtly, because when you use lens distortion, you also get the problem that you have chromatic aberrations, which is something that you usually don't want, especially when you're filming something in real life. If you're taking a video of a wedding or something, of course you don't want to have chromatic aberrations in the image. as you try to avoid every kind of artifact, may it be noise or chromatic aberrations or whatever. But as I try to create an effect that that is supposed to make you feel like this footage is real, is some real footage that you've taken, I actually went a little bit overboard with it because I thought, let's do it more prominent when you would probably have it in a normal setting, in the normal world with a normal real camera. And so I exaggerated that a little bit. Normally, especially for the dispersion value, I wouldn't use the value of 0.1. I think more suitably is usually a value of maybe, let's say, 0.05 or maybe even 0.02. So that's a little bit less harsh, less extreme on the eye. But this is actually what I went for. So I decided to make it like that. And then you can also see that I've used 2 glare nodes and composited them together with 2 mix nodes as well. And this one is fairly simple. This is a fog glow, so this is basically what's creating this glow around around these lights. And here I've been using a ghost, a glare ghost. And I wanted to talk about that also for a short moment because I think it's quite underused. Normally, when you're compositing with glares or with glare nodes, what you usually see is either streaks, which you really see a lot, especially in night scenes when there are some lanterns or something like that. You very often see streaks, or you see fog glow to get this effect. 1 moment, please. Okay, 6 minutes. Still everything okay. So you see I'm checking on that all the time to be sure that I don't record for too long. But these ghosts, this ghost glare here has created these little artifacts that you have here. And normally you don't really want that, of course. But as someone once said, imperfection is the digital perfection. I think it was some animator who said that in the late or early 90s, something like that. I can look it up on the internet. This is something that would happen in pretty much every lens, because even if you have a very expensive lens, like a 20K or 50K or 100K Hollywood lens, still in every lens 2 things are going on. And the first thing would be reflections, and the second one would be dispersions. And now in a professional lens you don't have it that obvious, and also the big filmmakers in Hollywood, they have software so that we can calculate such things out of it. So when we have an artifact in the image, let's say the lens was a little bit dirty, or there was a water droplet on it, or whatever, they would have very expensive software to get that out. But especially in the cheaper lenses that you would have on a very cheap camcorder, for instance, that also doesn't have a lot of glass in front of it, you would get a lot of artifacts. And in my opinion, these ghosts add a lot to the image in the sense of realism, because this is something that you would normally just know from a real-life camera and not from a digital camera. And as I tried to make it look more real this time, I think these ghosts have actually added quite a lot to the video. Because this is something that you wouldn't get usually in a digital setting. As I said, it's a thing that you would just see in real life. And I think everyone who wants to create a scene that is supposed to look real should also incorporate such camera effects. At least if you want to make it look like it was filmed with a camera, if you want to make it look like you see it through someone's eyes, it's a different story. But I really like to use these ghosts. I think they do add a lot to the image, and I think they are a little bit underused in general. But okay, that much about it. And now the last thing that I wanted to show you, and that is, let's go better to the animation tab. That is the camera animation. Okay, so let's select the camera here. And you see we have these nice keyframes and this camera motion going on, but I've already shown to you. And now I want to show you how I made this. And I basically did it by recording the camera movement in real time. And to do so, you have to activate this little button here, which is auto keying. And that means basically that every time you move, rotate, or scale something in the scene, it basically takes a keyframe for that. So that it will change if you play it back later. And to record it in real life, I use something that is called the fly mode. And you can find this under View, Navigation, and down here it is Fly Navigation or Walk Navigation. You can also use Walk Navigation, but I usually use 1, 2, 3. I usually use the Fly Navigation. Because I've been used to it, as I've been using it from I think 2.49 on when I just started with 3D creation. And in Blender 2.5, 2.6 and 2.7, it was already designed to the shortcut Shift plus F. Now that is not the case anymore, but that is not a problem because you can right click on it and then you can say assign shortcut and assign a shortcut to it, but I've already done that, so I do not need to do that. And then you can do the same. So now let's go back to the animation tab. And we also see some blue keyframes here, but I will come to this in a minute. So we delete the keyframes. I start the recording, and now I go Shift F. And as you can see, as I'm moving the camera, every time I move it, it creates some keyframes, and if I don't move it, there's a little gap in between. And you can also move around the scene basically. And there you go basically. So you have this recorded then. And by the way, it's also, as you could just see when it was jumping from 250 to 0 again, it is often wise to leave a little bit of space in between, or leave some space at the end, so that you're recording, let's say, from 30 on, and then to 230, or if you need some more keyframes, you can make the animation longer by saying the endpoint is maybe at 300 or something. But I will for the moment put it back at 250. And once you've done that, you have to go to this tab here, and you have to go to key, and I want to smooth the keys, but in order to correctly smooth the keys, we have to get rid of these blank spaces in between, because then the smoothing simply won't work the way I desire it to. So what we have to do here is basically say, okay, create some keyframes in between, and that's easily done by going to key and say sample keyframes. So that's the blue keyframes that we just had. And now with Alt O, or going back in this menu, key, smooth keys, I can now smooth the animation. Let me just do that a couple of times. And when I take this one off now, you can see that we have a pretty smooth animation. Okay, the beginning was a little bit weird, so let's go to this point maybe. And you're basically getting this handheld look, which looks like someone with a Steadicam, for instance, has recorded this. And I really like that. And you can make a lot of really cool animations really fast with that. Also, if you're making prototypes or just want to try some things out, I would really recommend this, because if you are animating the camera hand by hand, frame by frame, it will definitely take much longer. And especially in the creative business, but in general, I think you should be a person that is willing to try out things and experimenting with things. And that is why I think that the fast workflow is often better than a workflow that is slower but correcter. And if you don't like it and it hasn't taken much time, you can still redo it. But I think that's pretty important to do that, to experiment. And this fly navigation can get you to some really nice results very fast. And yeah, even if you don't use it for your final animation, because when you use some empties or something to animate the camera, you can still use it to play around. And yeah, I just wanted to show that because I've been using that for my animation. And yeah, maybe it was helpful to one or the other of you guys. And yeah, basically that's already it. So that's all that I wanted to show in this video. And if you want to, you can stick on to the next video, which will be more interesting in my opinion, because in the next video I will show you what I've done in After Effects in the final compositing with the video. Okay, good. Thank you for watching, and yeah, maybe we'll see us in the next video. So see you then.